Hey there, Aubrey. What's shaking?
I'm great, Lindsay. A question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever texted something to the wrong person or maybe the wrong group chat?
Yeah, I totally did that once a few years ago. I thought I was texting to my partner, but I was texting in like a more of a professional group chat or something like
that. Could be bad.
Yeah, it could be bad. Luckily, it wasn't that bad.
Okay,
I just
good.
wrote something like, "Should I cook chicken?" or something like that. Should I cook chicken? Should we cook chicken?
They're like, yes, you
And
should.
they made like a wisecrack response or something.
This just happened to me this week. I love that you did that as well. I was preparing for this episode and I meant to type into ChatGPT something and I sent it to my volleyball group instead, which is like 20 people.
That's so
And so to give a little background, today we're sharing tips to help you avoid a common mistake in English, accidentally offending with the phrase, of course, which can accidentally be a little rude. So what happened was someone asked one of our students if they had taken a photo that they posted, this beautiful photo, and they responded, yes, of course. And that inspired this episode because I realized, they don't realize that could come across as rude or critical of the question, right? So I was sort of brainstorming other circumstances when you shouldn't say of course. And I meant to put in ChatGPT, when is it inappropriate to say yes, of course? But I sent that to 20 volleyball players and the responses were very funny. One person typed, when airport security asks if you packed anything flammable. It's like all they responded. And someone else said, when someone asks if you need help burying a body.
I love that.
This is really funny. So then I had to explain to them because they were like, why are you asking this?
That is so funny. I'm sorry,
really
that's
funny.
hilarious. So out of context. So it's so funny. Oh, this is really good stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be a great episode though, because of, of course, usually it's very positive and adds enthusiasm to say yes, of course. But depending on the context, it could be rude, right?
This is going to be a great episode because we're going to get into a real nuance of English that I think our listeners are ready for. Because I think a common misunderstanding about of course is that people use it to answer yes in different contexts. And like if you're offering to help or you're providing help with someone to someone about something, yes, that leaves you open. That's friendly. But then when we use it in a slightly different answer, it does sound potentially a little snappy. Don't you think?
Exactly.
A little snappy.
They're critical of the question, snappy maybe. So we're going to get into all of the meanings of course might have and whether they are positive or potentially could be rude. So be sure to hit follow, guys. If you love episodes like this, you might be missing some because we have 5 new episodes every week.
Yeah, don't miss a single episode. Make sure we come up right in your episode queue. When you put your headphones in, when you start listening, you want All Ears English to pop right up. So go ahead and hit
and we
the
often
follow
have bonuses that you're missing if you don't hit
button.
follow.
Absolutely. Okay, Aubrey. So what would be the first meaning of course?
Yeah. So the first one is what you were mentioning. It means, yes, I can do that. If someone's asking for help, right? So let's do a little mini role play showing this.
Can you help me organize these files?
Yes, of course. Right? So this, you're saying, yes, I can do that. And you're being a little more enthusiastic about it. Because sometimes if you just say yes, the other person might be like, okay, is that a yes, but I don't really want to? Or like, yes, of course.
So just to clarify, there's no world in which that's rude, right, Aubrey?
Exactly.
This is not the rude use of course.
It's all about what you're responding to. If ever someone has asked for help, you can say, yes, of course, and it's never rude.
Exactly. It's about what you're responding to and think about how that comes off. So let's go into number 2, which is, yes, I would do that. The second use of course.
So if someone is asking if you would do something or maybe if you would join them somewhere, this is the second way we use this. We'll say, yes, of course, meaning, yes, I would do that, or yes, I would like to do that.
Okay. So what does this look like, Aubrey?
All right, here's a little role play. Want to come with me to a basketball game this week?
Yes, of course. Okay.
Yeah, so this is really enthusiastic. You're wanting to make it clear that you do really want to come. You're not saying yes out of politeness, right? So it adds enthusiasm. Purely positive here.
And there are other options. You know, you could say yes, absolutely, if you want to really show that you really want to go to that game. Maybe the person has courtside seats or something. You really want to go. So we don't have to say of course, right? Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's interesting how you don't have to say yes, of course. You can just say, of course. You're like just to enthusiastically say yes. But
Okay.
if you're using it to answer other questions, you could sound like you're criticizing the question or the person asking and
the
accidentally
assumption
give offense.
Give offense. You could be criticizing the assumption behind the question or what. Yeah, exactly. Let's see what this looks like, Aubrey.
Yeah. So as an example, let's say you take cookies to a party and someone asks if you made them yourself and you say, yes, of course. Right? What would that imply, Lindsay, if you asked me and I said, yes, of course?
This would imply that I'm thinking maybe you think I bought them, which could be offensive,
offended.
right?
I'm probably offended that you think I bought them when I put all this work in to make them.
Yeah.
Of course I made them.
I think part of what might be happening here is just direct translation from our native languages.
Potentially.
Because I think maybe, of course, the translation in French, Spanish, Italian might be more accepted more broadly.
Yeah, and might not have this implication, right? This is kind of a cultural connotation of this, assumed offense, right?
Yeah.
So instead, if someone asks you that, you could be like, yes, I did. Oh, it took me all day, right? If you say, of course, they might be assuming you were offended by the question.
Yeah, it's really, wow, this is really, really touchy.
Let's do a little role play of what not to do. So here, I'm giving you, Lindsay, a tour of my new apartment, and you see a painting on the wall. Start us out here.
All right, here we go. Did you paint this?
Of course.
Ooh. Yeah, it's a little rude. It just, it's
really interesting how, like, I probably didn't mean to be rude. I just want to share that. Yes, I did, but there is this implied offense at the question that you're assuming maybe I didn't, when of course I did.
Right. It's implied. Exactly. So this is where we might deploy our alternative options. Like we said earlier, saying, instead of saying, of course, in this context, saying, absolutely, I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if someone's asking you to do something, I'd be happy to. Lots of different options here. But yeah, if someone asks, like, if you painted something, just saying like, yes, I did. And then often it's great to immediately give more information, right? If you just stop there, yes, I did. Would kind of be strange.
Awkward. We don't love silence in American culture.
Right. And usually a question like that, if someone asks, did you paint that? Did you make these cookies? They're trying to start a conversation. So if you can give more than just, yes, I did, give some kind of detail about where you got the recipe from or when did you do the painting, then you're starting a fun conversation.
Yeah, maybe the inspiration behind the painting, the type of paint that you used, oil paints, or depending on who you're talking to, right? It's the beginning of a conversation. Yeah.
And then we use, of course, one final way, which is to say either you're welcome or like no problem. And this also is not offensive, but it really has a very different meaning. So it's kind of crazy how many ways we use, of course.
It really is. Really interesting. So I would say to you, thanks for staying late to help clean up.
Of course. So this is friendly. Yes. It's like, and it's the same as saying no problem, instead of just saying you're welcome, which can kind of feel like I'm put out. If I say of course or no problem, I'm letting you know I'm happy to help.
Yeah. And your tone of voice really matters there too. Of course, right? You wanted to help. You're making that clear. Okay.
Exactly. Right. But other options are maybe don't mention it, or like I said, no problem, or it's the least I could do. These other really polite ways to say you're welcome, really.
Yes. Love it. All right, Aubrey. So we are going to do a role play and bring this whole thing to life here. Yeah, so here, Aubrey, you are moving into a new home. And you're asking me, your friend, for help with the move. So this is a obligatory thing that friends do.
Especially when we're younger, right? These days we would maybe just hire movers if we could. When we were younger, we were always asking help with friends to move.
Yeah. Once it starts to involve like your kids and their things, I think your friends don't want to move there. You know what I mean?
Right. Or the older we get, we're like, my back can't handle this.
Yeah. That's true too. Yeah, for sure.
All right. I'll start us out here.
Okay.
Hey, do you think you could help me move in this weekend?
Of course. What time should I come over?
Thank you so much. Maybe noon on Saturday? I should have everything packed by then.
Oh, I could help pack too if you like.
Really? That would be amazing.
Of course, I'd love to. I remember you helped me move, so I definitely owe you one.
Oh, I really appreciate it. It'll definitely go faster and be more fun.
In fact, I don't know if I ever thanked you for helping me out that day. Thank you.
Of course. Happy to help.
Nice. So we didn't really have the offensive version in this, did we? Not
No,
really. No,
I did not include the offensive version.
Yeah. Right. But we could see how that could be slipped in. Maybe again, there's like a piece of pottery that I pull out when we're packing. Did you make this? Right. Of course, that would be rude because that's implying that you think that I think that it's not homemade or something.
I love that. Gosh, you think that, I think that, but it's so true. It's all about what was the question? What's maybe implied? Are you offended by the question?
Exactly. So let's go through this. So what's the first thing I said, Aubrey?
So I had asked if you could help me. You said, of course, what time should I be there? So this is that first meaning. I can do that. I'm willing to do that.
Great. And then I said I could help pack too, if you like. You said, really, that would be amazing. And then I said, of course, I'd love to. And we need to hear that enthusiasm in the voice there too, right?
Exactly. This is that second meaning. I would do that. I'm willing to do that. Very similar, these first two. But you're right. The intonation, hearing in your voice, that willingness is a lot of it. Because you could be like, of course, questioningly, and then the enthusiasm's gone.
Yeah, I was talking to my partner about this yesterday. It's very weird in life when you encounter someone whose gestures or tone of voice don't match the words they're saying. Like we had a doctor's appointment the other day and the doctor said, everything's fine, right? But her tone of voice and like the gaps in what she was saying and her gestures didn't make us feel that way.
Like really? Because you don't sound like everything's fine.
Right? It's weird because
it does happen.
It erodes trust. So it's really important to mirror what you're saying, the words, with gestures, with body language, with tone of voice. At least in American English it is.
Absolutely. Yes. Very important, right? So we don't send mixed messages or erode trust, like you said. That's really vital.
Yeah, totally.
And then just the last one here, I said, you were thanking me for helping you when you moved. And I said, of course, happy to help. And this just means you're welcome.
Nice. Okay. Good stuff in this. And this is really a high level episode today, Aubrey, because I think many of our listeners may just be translating, of course, from their native language and not realizing that there's a catch there. Right?
Exactly. So again, you've heard this before, but don't translate directly from your first language. That always causes problems. But also this is such a connection skill, right? Being willing to help someone out is one of the best ways to build relationships. And if you think about if someone asks you for help and you say, sure, I'm willing to help, that's not building that much of a connection. You're maybe making them feel like you're inconvenienced. And so, of course, can really be a great way to be enthusiastic about your willingness to help someone.
Yeah, the word sure is so half-hearted, isn't it?
Yes,
it's such a disappointment.
Sure. Unless you really give it a sure.
Yeah, it really is. So tone of voice and delivery really matter. Ultimately, connection matters. And it feels good to help out. Like it really does. You know, if you can join a committee where you're helping people or just helping a friend, it'll give back to you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then just the other takeaway is if someone asks you if you cooked something or if you baked something, if you respond with, of course, they may feel like you were offended by the question. They may feel like you're criticizing the question. So be careful with that, right? Instead, you could just say like, yeah, I did.
Yeah. I have some other options for that particular scenario, right? And then be ready to go into maybe what materials or ingredients you used, right? Or why that thing inspired you, or maybe it was your grandmother's recipe or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
Right?
It could be the start of a great, really fun conversation.
Yeah, really good stuff today. All right, Aubrey, great topic. Thanks for bringing this to the show, and I'll see you soon. All right.
Awesome. Thanks. See you next time.
Bye.